I get asked a lot why I'm so into watches. It's not really a normal thing to be super into. So here is my entire watch collecting journey, from my first watch to my most recent purchase, and where I see my collection going. Also, I'm afflicted with a horrible virus, so if my voice sounds raspier than usual, that's why. If you're new here, my name is Brittany, and on this channel we just talk all things watches. I started this channel out of my excitement and enthusiasm around watches, and it's been the place where I've been documenting my watch collecting journey. I'm not the kind of person who's been into watches my whole life. It wasn't like a hobby that was passed down from my grandfather to my father, then to me. It's a relatively new thing for me, and it all began with this watch. This is my Disney Mickey Mouse. I think it retails for $12.99 or something ridiculous like that. This is the first watch I remember being quite interested in, enough that I brought it up to my husband that I really liked it. At age 27, well, it was my fiance at the time, so I must have been 26. Either way too old to be asking for this watch. So the whole thing that inspired me into wanting this watch was watching the Dan Brown film adaptation of the Da Vinci Code. The main character wears a Mickey Mouse watch where Mickey's hands tell the time. I mentioned to my fiance at the time, it was just in passing, it wasn't a super big conversation, but how much I liked this. What a whimsical way to tell the time. And that Christmas, he surprised me with this. It sounds like a really small gift, but I remember it meaning so much to me that he would listen to something I would say in passing. It was a really small deal, and actually do something about it. It was really thoughtful. It was really kind. I don't know. I thought it was really sweet, and I wore this watch daily for about 2 years. Okay, next watch. I received this in 2018, my Cartier Tank Solo in stainless steel, and this was my first proper nice watch. This was, once again, a gift from my husband on our first wedding anniversary, and I remember being so blown away by how high quality this is. Like, the way it felt in my hand, the way it formed on my wrist. I never thought I would own something so nice, let alone something that said the name Cartier on it. That was a nice fancy brand, reserved for fancy people, not riffraff like me. I remember my husband was desperately trying to get me into watches at the time. It was this hobby he really loved and wanted to share that with me, and slowly over time he wore me down. I told him there were only 2 watches I would ever want. Haha, that changed. There were only 2 watches I ever would want, would be the Cartier Tank or the Cartier Santos. And I guess I didn't see it as an imminent thing. I thought maybe as like a 10-year wedding anniversary gift. But hey, 1 year is even better. This is the watch that kind of turned the first cog in me, understanding why some people are so gaga for watches. Next, the NOMOS Tangente Hodinkee Sport Limited Edition. This was my first mechanical watch. So this has a manual winding movement, and it is the sportiest interpretation I've ever seen of the Tangente. I wasn't quite into watches yet. I wasn't a person who would read Hodinkee or see this, but my husband saw this and showed me it and said, this would look really good on you, and explained all about NOMOS, why they're so cool, and I was on board. I remember they had a picture in their marketing of a woman wearing this. She had a thick knit, creamy, chunky jumper, and it was the first time I saw myself represented in watch marketing. I really felt like this watch was a bit of me, and it represents my only regret I have in watch collecting so far. So I sold this watch back when I was starting this YouTube channel so I could buy this camera and give this YouTube thing a proper go. At the time, it really made sense to me, but looking back now, I regret it. Yeah, I mean, you live, you learn, you make mistakes. Okay, next, my Tudor Black Bay 58 in blue. If the Tank was the watch that got the first cog turning, this was the watch that threw me into the deep end, pun intended, and it made me into a watch person. This watch was pretty meaningful on a few different levels. For one, it was my first watch with some pretty heavy hitting specifications. 200 meters of water resistance, manufacturer caliber, a super capable dive watch. 2, it scratched a really specific itch for me. My husband used to always wear his Rolex Submariner 116610LV, and he was trying to get me to wear it, but it felt too big. But I loved this dive style of watch. I wanted a diver that had those same proportions, the same amount of bracelet showing at the sides, but for my wrist. And this was it. And 3, I don't know if you remember, but the blue variation was released right at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. It was the summer of 2020. I was feeling pretty down, honestly. And this kind of gave me a glimmer of hope and happiness, just something I was excited about in a time where I felt like a lot of life was being taken away, if that makes sense. I was so immensely proud to own this. Still am. Okay, let's talk about the Rolex Oyster Perpetual. Oh, this watch will never be leaving my collection. This was the first watch I wanted. Like, I made the decision. I didn't feel influenced by my husband or like he put an idea in my head. I saw someone wearing this on TV. I thought it was the most perfect, versatile thing, and I wanted one. I knew right from the get-go I wanted the 34mm in black and nothing else. This was the first model where I had like that all-consuming obsession where you lie to yourself and you think, if I just get this watch, then I'll be happy. Then I won't want any other watch ever. I also think it's a real testimony to how boring my tastes are by nature. But yeah, this is the gold standard of go anywhere, do anything, in my humble opinion. Great bracelet, well finished, 100 meters of water resistance, automatic movement. Everything is quite good. I also had an extraordinary Rolex purchasing experience. I purchased this in November 2020 from Mallory's in Bath. This is when everything was going waitlisted. So pre-pandemic, you could still just walk in and get like Oyster Perpetuals. They would be in the window for sale. But this was around the time everything was exhibition only. So we popped in for a day trip. I mentioned to the salesperson there that I would like to put my name down for an Oyster Perpetual 34 black dial. He said, that's a relatively unpopular model. You're actually the only one on the list. And then he said, wait, actually, we've received a delivery today, and there's a chance that it might be in there. Let me go check. This man walks back into the showroom. He says, close your eyes, put your hands out, and in my hands was an Oyster Perpetual 34 black dial. Was I financially prepared to spend £5,000 that day? No. But when an act of God happens, you gotta be ready. You gotta pull out the credit card. All joking aside, a bit like the Cartier, never in a million years did I think I would own a Rolex, let alone the Rolex I wanted more than anything. The perfect size. I will be wearing this when I'm a little old lady. Moving on, the Omega Speedmaster. It's the watch I'm wearing right now. I received this back in 2023, and I will never stop saying this. This is the kindest, most thoughtful, generous thing I've ever received. It is one of the most precious items I have. So if you're a bit newer to the channel, back in March 2023, I was hit by a car on my bicycle. Really serious injury. I broke my jaw and my hip, meaning I could no longer walk or eat. I was in so much pain. I was exceptionally sick. So at the time, just before my accident, I was working on an Omega Speedmaster video. I wanted to talk about every Speedmaster reference, really go in depth about the Speedmaster, and my lovely gorgeous friend Owl said, hey, you should borrow one of my Speedies. This is a transition reference. It was just as Omega started developing the Speedy design language as we know it. The first reference with lyre lugs. Really important piece of history. And when I got into that accident, Owl texted saying, wishing you a speedy recovery. Keep that Speedmaster. It's yours. And I remember I was just sitting there crying in so much pain and just feeling overwhelmed by radical generosity. This is a prized possession for me, and it kind of reflects the person I want to be too. If you follow my channel, you will know this isn't every watch in my collection. This is just the meaningful, important, kind of milestone ones, the ones I feel like define my collection and where I'm going, and they're just very meaningful. So, the Omega Seamaster Diver 300. This was me breaking down and finally buying an Omega. I had the Speedy. I didn't think I wanted another Omega, but the discontinued mid-size SMPs, they got me. They got me. They're so good. So I bought the mid-sized reference 2250-250. It's the smaller size of the 2250-450, and I like this so much. I needed to add the more classic looking model. I wanted the 5-link bracelet, classic blue. I wanted the Seamaster, you know? And this has probably been my most worn watch of 2025. I mean, how do you argue with this? How do you not choose this? I've received a lot of comments and I think I will on this video too, on how boring my watch collection is and how boring my tastes are. Like, I know I have a lot of boring mainstream classic watches, but I really resent comments like this. I think when we get a little too deep in this hobby, we forget how aspirational these are, how expensive these are, how personal and almost intimate our tastes are. I am not exercising false modesty when I say, growing up as a kid in rural Canada, never in a million years did I think I would own things that are as precious and special as these items are. I don't know. I feel really grateful that I can now afford things like this. If it's not your cup of tea, that's fine. Let's lighten things up. This is probably the funkiest watch in my collection, and this is our final stop on the tour of Brittany's collection. Ew, I just referred to myself in the third person. I hate myself. This is the tippy top of my collection, my FP Journe Elegante 40mm in Titanite. I remember when I was first getting into this hobby, seeing FP Journe watches on Instagram and online and immediately being drawn to them. My sensibilities are pretty classical, and Journe always have something asymmetrical about them, which I like. They're a little bit wabi-sabi. I've always had a thing for this brand, but I was painfully aware that I can't afford anything. So a few years ago, my husband purchased the chronometer Souverain Havana dial, which opened up the doors for me to ask for this. For me, this is a dream watch. This is a grail kind of piece. It is the most realistic Journe for me. I'd love to get some of the older 38mm brass movement pieces, but wallet says no. I feel like I've been talking forever. I might do a whole separate video about where I see my collection going. That feels like a January video. That feels like a new year. What's the refreshed new look on watches? So this is my watch collecting journey so far, the most meaningful pieces in my collection. I'd love to hear about your watch collecting journey in the comments down below. Where did it start versus where is it now? Where do you see it going? Thank you so much for your viewership. I am forever honored that people tune in and like watching these videos. Thank you. And now, Pope tier patrons. Oh yeah, get their names on the screen. Oh, Pope tier patrons, I don't know if I have the raspiest voice in the world. I don't know, I feel so sick, but I didn't want to spend another day on the sofa. I was getting so bored. But yeah, thank you so much for supporting my weird little channel. I can't believe anyone likes this channel, so thank you. I hope you've had a gorgeous 2025. And may 2026 be your best year yet. I really mean it. May it be a banner year for you. Even if you don't enjoy this channel forever, thank you so much for supporting it now. I am blessed with the best patrons ever. And I hope you keep enjoying watches forever. They're awesome. You're awesome. Bye, guys.